right, so let's dive into intentions and impact. So we talk a lot about this whole word, y'all know how I feel about words, this word about intentions and intent. And how this whole thing came up is because my mind keeps going. And so I started thinking about how we all set intentions, how you set intentions for your day, you set intentions for your life, you set intentions for your business, you set intentions. And we use that as a noun. We are setting intentions. And then there's the other thing where something happens and it's not what we intended. That's not what I intended. That's not what I meant, right? And all of that stuff kind of gets jumbled. Well, I am in an amazing new mastermind. The mastermind itself is not new. I am new to it. Mastermind of these incredible Black women. And we've been talking about a lot of stuff. And so we were talking about manifestation, which y'all know I have an issue with just that word. That word just does something to me. I don't know what it is. It feels either too woo-woo or I don't know. But it all gets down to about calling out things and do we really deserve that? All that mess, all that head trash. And one of my new colleagues in this mastermind said, Laurel, when I think about manifesting, I don't think about it as just conjuring up stuff, because that's the thing that comes to my mind, right? We're just going to conjure up, we're just going to manifest this beautiful thing. She said it's more about making room for the things that are meant for me, opening up space. And as I listened to that, I thought, that gets back to my whole word this year, that whole surrender, just surrender to the flow. What's supposed to be yours will be yours if you make room for it. I've said it a number of times. When we're holding on to other stuff so tight, we don't make room for the stuff that's really intended for us. So this is about, letting go, right? So that manifesting is more about letting go and calling out the things you need. And as part of the faith walk, right, or part of my faith walk is that whole idea of you pray for what you want, believing you will receive it. Now, it will come to you if it's meant for you. It may not look the way you thought it was going to look, but if it's meant for you, it will show up if you make room for it. And if you believe for it, and if you work for it. It doesn't mean you just sit on your butt and say, please give it to me. You work, you move intentionally. And that's where that whole idea connects to intention, right? The problem is we have to think about not only just the intentions that we set, but the actions that we take and the impact of those actions that we take, right? What did you intend to happen? Because we are free to make choices. We are free to take action, but there are often times that there are unintended consequences. Like the unintended consequence of us having so few people who want to be in manufacturing or who want to be in more industrial trades, right? Because we had generations that felt like doing better, your kids doing better, meant that they went to college and they got degrees and they did white collar jobs. They worked in an office. They didn't have to work outside. They didn't have to work with their hands. That was somehow seen as less than, not as important, not as lucrative. And while well-intended, right? I want my kids to do better than me. I want the next generation to do better than me. Well-intended, the unintended consequences were that we had this whole generation where it's hard to find kind of people who want to do the trades, or we have that pressure on people that everybody has to go to college. And we're just now swinging that pendulum back to say, number one, it's not meant for everybody. Two, not everybody wants to go, and why waste the money if that's not where they want to be? And three, you can make an incredibly great living with your hands and doing other stuff that doesn't require a 4-year college degree and 4-year college degree debt. Okay. So the unintended consequences of that not only were societal, but also kind of mental, physical, emotional. And that is the impact of our initial good intentions. So we intended for people to do better, but the impact was that we now have difficulty finding folks who can do the work that we need to have done for society to continue to move forward. And here's the thing, that's the bigger societal picture. As individuals, face to face, as individuals, relationship to relationship, we also can experience unintended consequences of our intentions and the impacts they make on the other person. The story I told when I recorded my podcast today is I have a friend who's going through some stuff, And we've been talking about a bunch of things. And I realized I was kind of pulling back a little bit. I was being a little bit more reserved than normal. I'm pretty reserved. Well, depends on who you are. Pretty reserved, but I have been pretty reserved because I just wasn't sure kind of where they were at that time. I was just listening a lot and just kind of answering specific questions. I wasn't giving additional information. And the person came back to me probably a couple days later and was like, I'm in a really bad place. You know, it feels like we're disconnected and I don't understand and maybe something's going wrong and blah, 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 blah. And I was devastated because I'm like, oh my gosh. And the first words out of my mouth were, but that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. And I had to pause. And marinate. Actions, intentions, impact. Did all of those align? Or was there something that disconnected? And so the next time we got a chance to talk, I said, you know what? First, let me apologize that my actions made you feel some type of way. Notice I didn't say, let me apologize if my actions made you feel something, or if you understood it this way, or if, right? Because that negates my actions. That minimizes the other person's feelings, right? Or their perspective. First, let me apologize that my actions made you feel blah, 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 blah. And then I said, I didn't stop there. I said, that was not my intent. But again, we got to be careful, right? That was not my intent. If we stop there, even though we've said, I apologize that, we've now still negated their feelings because it's like, that wasn't my intent. In other words, get over it. So I said, that was not my intent, but the impact was the same. And for that, I apologize. Because our intentions may be great, but if the impact is bad, we still own that impact. It may not have been what we meant. It may not have been what we intended, but it happened, and it happened as a result of our actions. And so we own the impact of the actions that we take, just like we have the ability to make choices, but we are not free from the consequences of the choices we make. We own the impact of the stuff that we do, especially when we're impacting other people. We own it when we impact ourselves too. That's when you have to turn that mirror around and say, okay, well, I made that decision. I made that choice. Here's what happened. I need to figure out what I'm going to do about that. But specifically, when we are dealing with someone else, we really got to think about and own the impact of the stuff that we're doing. Especially if we care about that person that we are connected with, that we have impacted some kind of way, intentionally or unintentionally. Because we also got to own the stuff that we do on purpose and the impact of the stuff we do on purpose. And so when I was thinking about all of this stuff that came together, setting intentions, manifesting, how our intentions impact ourselves and others, it's often our ability to disconnect and disown that gets us in trouble. That takes us away from people. Because we can't connect, or we don't take the time to connect our actual action to what has occurred. But the true measure of maturity and leadership and respect is owning our own stuff, being responsible for it, and telling someone that we own it, that we acknowledge it, that we recognize it, and that we're going to do different next time. When we know better, we do better. Now, from a leadership perspective, if you think about that even further, as I've been working with several clients of mine over the past several months, the same thing happens there. That's one of the reasons why really great project management starts with a really clear scope. And in the scope is a why. Here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. Here is what we expect the outcome to be. And here is our plan. So that if the outcome is different, we at least have a plan. But what happens is we set this scope, we do this project, we start moving really fast, things don't go well, and we start pointing blame. Well, that's not what we meant. Well, we don't know why that happened. Well, I don't know why they did it this way because this is what we said. Because we've gotten away from constantly butting up against what is the why of what we're doing this. Are we still aligned with the overall goal? Are our actions still aligned with where we're trying to go? Have we gotten additional information that has come in recently that is charging us with changing or morphing our actions so that we can maybe do something different around the potential outcomes, potential impact? What are we doing? And as leaders, if we are going to have intentions that create the impact that we want and minimize unintended consequences, we have got to be really, really clear on what our intent is. And don't get it twisted. don't make the mistake of thinking that everyone has good intentions, because they don't. Everybody's got an agenda. Everybody's got an agenda. Now, sometimes that agenda is just survival, right? We can't blame people for just trying to survive. But sometimes the agenda is a little nefarious. Sometimes the agenda is my survival over everyone else's detriment. Sometimes the agenda is, I don't care what it does to anybody else, but this is what we're going to do. So, we've got to be aware and not naive that there are agendas, both public and hidden agendas that happen that can impact intent and can morph intentions. But even if we understand that, when we get to the impact, we can then adjust if necessary. We can call it out when necessary, because the impact is real. The impact is where the rubber meets the road. We can have all kinds of good intentions, but when something actually impacts somebody, that's what's real. The intentions are aspirational. The impact is real. The impact is tangible. The impact is measurable. The impact gets people's attention. That's why you hear people talk about their purpose is to make an impact, right? Money is necessary to make an impact in this world, in this capital system we've got. Capitalism. The impact is the ultimate goal, right? What change are you making? How are you making a difference, right? Under many, many words. How are you making a difference? How are you changing the rhetoric? How are you changing perspectives, which is an impact? Because your intent may be really well-founded, but if the intent doesn't lead to the expected or intended impact or intended outcomes, then can we go back and look at the intentions? Because something got missed in the execution. And generally that's where stuff falls down, is in the actual execution. Here's what we said we wanted. Here's the plan we made, but here's what happened. So let's go do a post-mortem and find out what we missed up or missed, right? Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Did you think about what you really wanted to do? Did you consider what the outcomes were? I've been talking a lot about change management lately with some people, and there is a specific kind of method that I've used before that's really good. There are a lot of change management methods, but this one is pretty good and simple and clear. And it talks a lot about awareness. It talks a lot about desire and knowledge, right? And part of your planning is really, are people even capable of making the change at the moment? Are they capable of absorbing what needs to happen? Do they have the knowledge and skills to make the change? And we often have intent without having the deep discussion and asking the hard questions about the possibility and probability of the outcomes occurring that we want. Because our intent is pure. Our intent is pie in the sky. Our intent is, well, this is what I believe, so I know that's what's going to happen. See, that's that manifestation problem. Because I want it, it's just going to happen. Well, we do need to make room for that, and we need to be positive, and we need to call things to us. And I do believe in some of that, right? That we've got to be willing to be open to all possibilities. We also live in the practical. We live in the natural. And you got to take action. You got to move forward. You got to prepare. You got to put yourself in a position to be able to go after the outcomes that you are seeking. So those intentions that you're setting, those intentions that you have that you may or may not be speaking, are intrinsically tied to the outcomes. So that leadership imperative is understanding, what is my real intent? What is my real intent? And how is that impacting outcomes? And how do I make the link between those intentions and what I want to have happen? And remember, leadership is about behavior, not about position. And this whole idea of intentions is directly tied to behavior. The other thing that came up in talking about intentions and impact is this whole idea of setting intentions. I mentioned that earlier. And getting up in the beginning of the day and setting your intentions for the day, and having intentions for your business and all of those kind of things. And you can turn on anything, right? Any social media, get any coach, because there are 4 million of us, right? Any coach, set your intentions, start down, right? Talking heads. But here's the dealio. If you peel back all the rhetoric and just the words, right? Just set an intent, set an intent, set an intent. If you're not taking the time to really discern what you're trying to do, it's an exercise in futility. You just write a bunch of stuff down. Now, sometimes if you're like me and your brain is messy, you got to write stuff just to get it out of your head so you can get clear. It's one of the ways I get clear is to start writing stuff down, right? And I can see, okay, that needs to go over there, and that needs to go over there, and that doesn't make any sense, and that just needs to go away. So sometimes the exercise of getting that stuff out is just for clarity. But when you're setting intentions is about an active process of connecting to your intent, connecting to what action you're going to take. And as I struggled with this whole, manifesting and getting into all the stuff we talked about before, right? Well, if it's not happening, are you working hard enough? Did you set enough intentions? Were your intentions clear? Were you disciplined enough? Blah, 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 blah. We put so much pressure on ourselves that if what we want is not happening, we go compare ourselves to somebody else whose highlight reel we're comparing to our behind the scenes, and they're getting it all, and they're journaling every day, and their gratitude practice is better than mine, and they are clear on what they want, and they have better clients. They, right? Comparison is a killer. So if you're looking at how you are going to set your practice, first start with what you want. What do you want? And what are you capable of doing? And once you know whether or not you're capable, what are you willing to do? Because those are not the same thing. Just because you're capable doesn't mean you're willing. I am capable of cooking every meal from scratch every day. I'm not willing to do that. Capability and willingness are not the same thing. So what are your capabilities? And then what are you willing to do? And in the middle of that is all the other stuff that you go talk to your therapist about, which I saw this funniest thing I talk about in the podcast. Somebody posted, because I was looking at Libra quotes. And this one Libra quote said, yes, I'm okay, but is my therapist okay? I'm like, I should probably ask her that, because I'm probably making her a little insane too. It's that self-examination of what is your intent, and then what are you willing to do to get to that, and to take action around that intent. That whole idea of journaling. And I did set an intention, and my intention was to get clear, to physician heal thyself, to say, I just joined this really great new mastermind. I'm engaged with these other great boss women, and I'm getting some really great information. I need to give myself the gift of sitting in this with everything that I have, to the extent that I have, and with the energy that I have. I wrote a manifesto that I believe it came from the deepest, darkest places of my soul, right? I believe it with everything in my being. And so my new process that I put in place, because again, setting your intent based on what you're capable of and what you're willing to do. I am now up every morning. I'm always up early, but I'm now up every morning very early. And the first thing I do is I do my journaling and manifestation process. I start with gratitude, right? Then I set my intent for the day because I know me. I set my intent for the day. And sometimes the intent is just, I am determined to manage my energy today. I am determined to get my water in today, right? Or I am determined to make greater strides today to get to the discipline that I want to have to get to the ultimate goal that I said I wanted. Sometimes it's been, I am going to reevaluate this goal I put out because clearly I'm not taking action in that direction. So is it just on pause, or has something changed where I need to reevaluate the goal in its entirety? So when you're talking about setting intentions that create action, that lead to outcomes, don't get yourself all twisted up in your underwear that these intentions have to be the same intention every day. And it has to be this deep, amazing, incredible, thought-provoking intention. Sometimes the intention is, I'm just going to smile at least a couple times a day. I'm going to get up. I'm going to have lunch. I'm going to drink water. I'm going to take breaks today. Something, start small. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to save the world in the next 20 minutes. Because I think that's what happens a lot of times with our intentions, especially for us personally. Whether that's an intention for your business that you built as an entrepreneur, or whether that's your intention for your team as a leader, whether that's your intention as a member of your household, a member of your family, how you're going to interact with your kids, with your spouse, with your neighbor, with your friends. We think that we have to set intentions for our entire life all at one time. And we don't. We just have to be intentional about the intentions that we set. And we have to connect them to actions that will lead to outcomes. And then be willing to look at the outcomes that we experienced and evaluate those based on what our intent was. And instead of even saying to ourselves, oh, that's not what I meant, and moving on. Okay, that's not what I meant. That's not what I intended. Why did that happen? Was I not clear, or was I misaligned? Should I have known that that was going to happen? We have to be careful with that should word. My guest that's coming in a couple of weeks talks about that, not shoulding on yourself. That should word can cause a lot of pressure. But is there something I should have known or could have known that would have made my actions different, that would have increased the probability of the outcome that I wanted? Because I've spent time understanding and setting intentions that are clear and reasonable, aligned, understandable, and flexible enough that they allow for life to happen. Because life happens. Life happens. That's what we said before. You know, sometimes you just want to make sure you understand the ultimate goal where you're going so you can evaluate whether that little blip is a derailer or a detour. I would argue that most of them are just detours, and probably detours that have saved you from something. Because my friend Lanier reminds me all the time, sometimes rejection is protection. That's the thing that wasn't meant for you. If you didn't get it, maybe you weren't supposed to have it. Like I said, be careful what you ask for. You just might get it. And what are you going to do when you get it? What are you going to do when you get that promotion? You got the promotion, you got the title, you got the money, and you got the responsibility, you got the pressure, you got the team, you got the place where if something goes down, you're the one that wears the orange jumpsuit. Be careful what you ask for, you just might get it. So if your intent was to continue to build and grow so you could lead bigger and better and impact the decisions of the organization, the strategy, the structure of the organization, go for it. Because if that's your intent, then you understand what comes along with that. If your intent was, I just want to be VP, okay, be careful. Because there's a lot of stuff that comes with that you may not have ever intended to have to deal with. And when you're there, your actions have bigger impact, not only on you, but on the organization. So we have to think about setting intentions and being intentional as a part of a longer narrative, a part of an entire process, not just something that sits alone by itself and is not connected to anything else. That's why we get all off kilter. Because we think of intentions as this little finite thing. Here's my intent for today, and that's it. So even when I'm talking about setting micro intentions, I'm not talking about setting micro intentions and just moving on. Setting micro intentions that are connected to an action you're going to take, to an outcome that's going to happen, that you can see, that you can feel, that you can understand, that you can evaluate, that you can then move from, or on, or into, or around. But you have to be aware. You have to be focused. You have to be willing to be understanding. You have to be willing to be a little bit selfish, to think through the things that you need to do, you want to do, you have to do, you're called to do, so that you can manage and understand and evaluate those outcomes to move forward into where you want to be. And we don't do any of this stuff in a vacuum. There are other things that impact our activity and therefore impact the ultimate outcomes, impact the ultimate impacts. But if we have been really intentional, and if we're paying attention, if we're listening actively, if we are participating in the work that we're doing, not just kind of moving through, kind of robotic, right? Just doing the thing and not even thinking. We miss so much when we do that. I saw a video popped up in my feed the other day, and it was this woman in a factory, and they had socks, and this thing was, so she was sitting at a desk with this pile of socks, and then there were these little, they looked like wooden little feet things, like they were flat, but they were in the shape of a foot, like shape of a sock, that were passing by, and each one that passed by, she had to put a sock on. She had gotten so good at that, she wasn't even looking. She was just putting them on there. And every once in a while she'd miss one, but there was some person right behind her, and their job was to put a sock on the ones that were empty. And the person behind them whose job was to put socks on the one that was still empty. Right? So the first person was putting on every single thing and may have missed one out of every 5 or 6. Didn't even look anymore. It was just incredible. I mean, it was just, she'd done this so much, she wasn't even looking. But she still missed one every once in a while. And then the person behind her had to make up for that. And the person behind them had to make up for their misses. And the person behind them had to make up for their misses. You see what I'm saying? Her intention was to put a sock on every little form that came by. Her actions moved her in that direction. But the impact of the speed, right, of her dexterity, of maybe a loss in focus sometimes, meant that there were some of those forms that were missed, which meant it impacted someone else in terms of how many they had to do. Intention, action, impact. And that just came to me as I was recalling what I saw. A perfect example of that. Everything we do is tied to something else. We are all connected. We're all connected in some way or another. That's why they call it 6 degrees of separation. Although with Zoom and everything else, I heard say the other day, said we're about 2 degrees separated from everybody. We're getting to know a lot about people now that we never knew. And in some cases, we never wanted to know. But our intent is now more visible than ever, because our actions and our outcomes are more visible now than ever. And it's really important for us to be able to connect that and move accordingly and change accordingly. Because our intent and the impact, no matter how good our intentions were, can easily get misaligned. And it's not because we're trying. It's not because we're trying to do things wrong. It's not, well, Most of the time. Most people go to work to do good work. Most people get up trying to do good things that day. Most people don't get up trying to wreak havoc. I just believe that. I just have to believe that the majority of people are not getting up just trying to wreak havoc on everybody else. But the reality is we still do, just kind of in different levels. But if we are willing to be intentional about the actions we take, that means we're more likely to be intentional about fixing outcomes that we didn't intend, because we can see them, because we prepped for them, because we are paying attention and looking for them, because we want validation or confirmation that the actions we took actually gave us what we intended. And when we don't make that connection, that's when things get all off kilter. And again, it is personal, it is leadership, it is in your own business, it is in your department, it is in your life. It's everywhere. Intention is everywhere. Impact is everywhere. Action is everywhere. Because understand that inaction is an action. Not making a decision is a decision. Silence is consent. That's why I keep telling you guys, call your senators, right? Take action. Silence is consent. Inaction is action. You are making a choice to do nothing. If you've had an intent and it didn't turn out well and you don't do anything about it, you are making a choice to just move through and say, well, let the chips fall where they may. I'll deal with it when it happens. How many times have we said that? I don't know. I'm so overwhelmed. This is the best I can do. I'll just deal with it when it happens. We all have those moments, and there is no shame in that, because we only have so much capacity to handle stuff. But when you get in those moments, at least know what you're doing. At least know you're at that point that it's like, you know what, I can do. I'll just have to deal with it, whatever happens. That's where it comes to trusting yourself. I know myself well enough to know that I can do no more in this moment. I have no idea what's going to happen. It was the best I could do. Whatever happens, I'll just have to deal with it when it happens. And I'm trusting myself to be able to do that and to be in a better space, mentally, physically, emotionally, energetically, to be able to handle that. Because I know what my intent was. I just can't do anything more right now. And so I'll if it goes wrong, I'll just fix it. Like I had a CEO that I worked with years ago who said, if we did wrong, we'll apologize and we'll make it right. And that apology doesn't mean justification. That apology means an apology. I apologize that my actions had this impact. And I will continue to make mistakes, but my commitment is I will do my best and not make that mistake again. I will learn, because when we know better, we do better. When we know better, we do better. If we are paying attention to the impacts and the outcomes. That's the hard part, because we're all busy and things are moving so quickly. And sometimes it just gets beyond anything that we can handle. But if we give ourselves some grace, if we slow down, if we pause, if we pay attention, we might actually be able to adjust an outcome that we see coming that wasn't what we intended. Just maybe. But if we haven't taken the time to really understand our intentions, then that outcome is just going to come out of nowhere. And we're going to be caught flat-footed and we're not going to know what to do. We may eventually be able to adjust, but the impact of that outcome could be much more severe than what we intended, because we just weren't ready. We just weren't ready. And clearly you can't plan for everything. You can't. It's not possible to know everything that's going to happen. But we can do a better job of planning for stuff than we do on a regular basis. We can get a little bit better of being intentional around what we're doing and why. We can get a little bit better at understanding the connection of everything that we do, not only for ourselves, but to everybody else that we're talking about and everybody else that we're connected to. So those intentions should be intentional. Those intentions should be intentional. Is this making sense? It's making sense in my head. So hopefully it's making sense as it comes out of my mouth. Because, like I said, it's been kind of one of those weeks. So when you think about going into next week and how you're going to be setting intentions, my charge to you is, how do you get a practice together that works for you? For me, it's early in the morning because my brain wakes up anyway. So I figure, I may as well get up and do something productive with that, as opposed to just laying there and being irritated that I'm up. Now that also means my brain goes to sleep really early. But people who know me know once it gets dark, brain goes dark. And we're getting into fall right now, and I'm frustrated. I mean, I love the fall because the weather's cooler because it's been hot here. But when it's those really, really short days, y'all, it really works me. I think I have seasonal affective disorder. I really do. Because when it's dark all the time, my brain is dark. It is hard. When it is dark outside, my body says it is time to be done. It is time to go to sleep. It is time to rest. And when you got 2 hours a day that's light, that's a problem. Because there's so much more than 2 hours worth of work to do. But I digress. Mm-hmm. So as you think about how you're showing up, what are those intentions that you're setting? And have you set up a practice where you start your morning with intentions to set the mode for your day? Because there really is truth to that. What you put in your brain first thing kind of sets your brain for the rest of that day. That's another reason why I went back to my practice of not turning on the news first thing in the morning. Because hearing everything about every murder and every theft and all the drama the first thing in the morning sets you up for drama and looking for drama the rest of the day. So I start with what I want to do and gratitude and things and people and situations that I am thankful for. And then what I intend to do that day and how I'm going to give myself some grace because I don't know what's going to happen during the day. And I do all of that before I let the external world in. Before I let the noise in, because I got enough noise up here. I don't need extra. So I challenge you to find a way that works for you. So this isn't that normal challenge that says you got to do 10 pages of intentions every day or you're not there. No. Baby steps. If you've been doing nothing, start with something. If you've never set intentions, maybe start just saying, you know what? I'm going to spend 5 minutes just thinking about what I want for today before I do anything else. I'm going to get up today and I'm going to have a full glass of water before I do anything else. I am going to make sure that I establish a nighttime routine. That's a hard one for me, guys. A nighttime routine. Because when it's time to go to bed, I'm ready to go to bed. And if I'm not thinking about a nighttime routine until I'm ready to go to bed, the likelihood of that nighttime routine actually happening before my head hits the pillow and I'm watching the inside of my eyelids is between slim and none. But because I know that and my intentions are to have a nighttime routine that sets me up for really great sleep, which gives me great energy to be able to make an impact against my intentions, then I say, okay, well, then what do I need to do different? Here's my intent. Here's the actions I need to take to have the outcome that I want. The outcome that I want is better rest and better sleep and energy for the next day, which means I need to set up this nighttime routine, which I know gives me a better probability of that happening. Which means I cannot start thinking about my nighttime routine when I'm already sleepy. Know thyself. Start small. What are the things that you can do for you to set those intentions that move you towards the impact you want to make? And I'm telling you, I'm promising you, those little bitty small things make a difference. We have gotten tricked into everything has to be a big swing of the pendulum because that's what we do in the U.S. We don't do anything in moderation. We have got to take everything to an extreme. Remember O'Brien? Mm-hmm. O'Brien was supposed to be the be all and end all. It was going to cure heart disease and cure cancer. It was going to fix everything. Do they even have commercials about O'Brien anymore? Right? Now it's oat milk. So we jump on bandwagons so fast. We're looking for the silver bullet. We're looking for easy. We're looking for that easy. There's a reason that easy button sold so well. We're looking for easy. We're looking for fast. We're looking for instant gratification. But setting intentions is not about instant gratification. Setting intentions doesn't mean I'm going to say I want it today and it's going to show up tomorrow, unless it's intended for you, right? But the likelihood of that happening is between slim and none. And I'll tell you, I had a situation where I'm like, you know what? I don't know. I'm just going to put this out there. If it's meant for me, it will happen. My intent is to be honest and operate in integrity with this thing that showed up as an opportunity for me. I'm going to stand in my strength. I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to put it out there in a way that is aligned with my values. And if it's meant to be, it'll happen. And if it's not, it won't. And I won't be upset about that. I won't feel less than, because my intent was pure and my actions were aligned with that intention. And then the outcomes, let them fall where they may. And lo and behold, because I've been kind of doing this discipline thing now for a while, lo and behold, the thing happened. It happened. And then I was like, well, dang. Because I was desirous of it happening. I was anticipating that it would not. See, that's where our brain works. Plan B. Plan B. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance, and proper prior planning includes plan B, C, D through Z. And managing my disappointment if I don't get it. So, well, it's not going to happen. So then, you're getting your mind right. That's not a good thing. Don't, do what I say, not what I do. So don't be me and expect everything to not happen, right? Or expect it to happen differently. Don't be such a planner that you're only focused on planning for the unexpected and not sitting in expectation for the thing you want. Because that is a downfall of intent and planning, is you can be so focused on planning for everything that you don't allow yourself to sit in expectation. Because we have not, because we ask not. So ask and believe, take action in that space and towards that desire. Then just plan just in case, or just be ready just in case. But there's a fine line. As I said, there's a fine line between planning and paranoia. There's a really fine line between planning and paranoia. And there's a fine line between being prepared, right, and being paranoid. Because when you are so focused on plan B through Z, you're not putting your full effort into plan A. Plan B through Z should just be optional. Now, if you're also a messy mind like me, having at least some semblance of plan B gives you kind of space to let those go so that you can really focus on plan A. I had one of my mentors say, when I was in thinking about, oh my gosh, what am I going to do and how are we going to make this happen? And she said, you know what? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go write down what your worst case scenario is. And I've since used this with some of my clients, because physician heal thyself. And I've used it with them before. It's kind of your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, your BATNA. But it just didn't dawn on me to do it for me. And she said, I want you to go back and write down your worst case scenario. If this thing doesn't happen, what is your worst, the absolute worst that can happen? Write that down, make a plan for that, and then set it aside. She said, because then because I know how your brain works, then you're prepared. And she was exactly right. I know I got a plan. I can go pull the plan out. So I'm good. Now I can focus on the thing that I really want and where I'm really trying to move. Because I know I've got something sitting in the background, right, that's ready. It can be in my subconscious mind. It's almost like that safety net, right? I am sitting in anticipation that I'm going to get this thing that I want. I'm sitting in anticipation that this outcome is going to happen the way I intend it to, because my actions are aligned with my intentions and my intentions are pure, and I've understood what the impacts could be. And I've done that work to align all of that. And I can focus there because I know if something goes awry because there was new information or there was something that I couldn't have anticipated, because none of us is perfect, I'm good. I know I got something I can pivot to really quickly. So what is the thing you need to do when you're setting intentions to give yourself the freedom to pursue those intentions with full vigor? And not just pursue them halfway because, maybe, I don't know. Because if you're not really bought in, nobody else is going to be bought in either. If you're not really bought in, it's not going to get your full effort. If you're not really bought in, the likelihood of it really happening the way it's supposed to is pretty much between slim and none. So what do you need to do to get really bought in to give yourself some peace and some grace and some space to go after the thing you really, really, really want. You really, really, really desire. And make the plan to do that. Because that is what is going to get you to the outcome that you want, or at least close enough that you can make adjustments. And what's interesting is when you do all that work, sometimes the outcome may not be at all what we anticipated, but it's absolutely what we needed. It is absolutely exactly what we needed at the time and at the place where we are. Because the messages we need show up when we need them. The people we need show up when we need them. The things and places and all of that shows up when we need them, if and when we are ready to receive them. That's the hard part. It's the head trash. It's the training that we've had that gets in the way. But we have choices. And if we know it, we can address it. If we've seen it, we can address it. If we are willing to do different, if we're willing to acknowledge that when we know better, we can do better, then we can have different outcomes. We're going to have different outcomes. So I really want you guys to think about intentions and impact this week. Not just think about, but really take action. How can you be more focused on your intents? How can you set them up in a way that is helpful for you, not harmful? How can you do those things that you need to do to get where you need to be? Because that's what's important, right? You are also going to see some things coming up for me for the Rutledge Perspective. I'm going to post some things on my Facebook page about the voting. And the Facebook page is the Rutledge Perspective. That's the Facebook page. And the Instagram, the.rutledge.perspective. And laurel.k.rutledge. So you can find me on those platforms and on LinkedIn. So I'm going to post some things about that. The other thing is really in being mindful of the blessing of this platform and the platform of the podcast, which we're almost up to 7,000 downloads. And I've got a huge, big, hairy, audacious goal, big, hairy, audacious goal for the end of the year. And I'm going to ask you guys to support me in that. If you feel so inclined, and if you would, I would be highly appreciative. I'd really like to get to a pretty huge number of unique downloads by the end of the year. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. That's my birthday gift, right? Is to really, really sit into that and lean into that and set an intention around that and some work that I need to do personally to make sure that happens, or to do everything I can to give myself the best opportunity for that to happen. But this idea of intention and impact, the next time something you do or something you said impacts someone in a way that you didn't intend, try to pause and not say, oh, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. I'm sorry, that's not what I meant. Or if you're just in the habit of saying that, follow that up with, oh, I'm sorry, that's not what I meant. But I understand the impact and I own that. How can I do better next time? How can we fix it? Don't just stop with, that's not what I meant. Don't negate that person's feelings. That's what happens to a lot of marginalized people of color, women of color. People negate our experience. They said this and how it made me feel. Oh, that's not what they meant. Really? Because I heard exactly what they said. And I know the context in which it was said. So when we do that, we minimize somebody else's experience. So if that happens again and that comes up as an opportunity for you, I'll challenge you to not say that's not what I meant, or if it slips out, to follow it up with, but I own the impact. How can I do better next time? How can I make it right? Because we're all going to slip up. None of us is perfect, but we can professionally, maturely, honestly own the impacts of our action. And if we could all do that, man, we would be in such a different place right now, societally. If we could just own the impact of the stuff we did, if we could just be honest about it and speak the truth and shame the devil. If we could do that, we would be in a different place right now. I just know we would. I know we would. So with that, since I always run over, I'm actually 3 minutes early this time. Thank y'all. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to be out at the end of this week. I'm going on my solo trip to do a lot of reflecting, a lot of intention setting, a lot of resting, a lot of listening to the creek and watching the hummingbirds, resting, rejuvenating, relaxing, all of that good stuff. I wish all of you a fantastic rest of your week, a week of good intentions, a week of fantabulous outcomes that you never could have imagined.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What is the intention of you going on this retreat?
My intention for going on this retreat, number one, I have several. The first one is to rest. The second intention is to reset. And the third intention is to clarify. It's just those three. Rest, reset, and clarify. For this next year around the sun, I'm coming ready. Not that I wasn't ready before, but we can always be more ready.
Yeah.
We can
always
always
more
be more
information
ready.
than you had before.
I have more information than I had before. I have more clarity than I had before.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I have greater direction than I had before. I have a different set of people guiding me than I had before. Mm-hmm. And every person that has come into my life as a guide has been intentional, right? Whether I intended it or the divine intended it, it has been intentional. And I have learned something from every single encounter. And so I am sitting deep into this group that I'm in right now, deep in appreciation, deep in thoughtfulness and willingness to do the work. Remember, mastery, people pay for mastery. And as my coach told me the other day, the riches are in the niches. Don't be afraid to be clear on who you serve and why. Your intent behind that service.
Alana Van Zant used to say that, do the work.
Do the work.
Do the work. And sometimes the work is hard, but it's necessary.
The work, you know what? The work is always hard. Even when it's work you want to do, real work is always hard. My friend Kevin always says, that's why they call it work. Mm-hmm. That's why they don't call it play. That's why they call it work. Work is hard. Now, it may be enjoyable. When you're in your purpose, the work is enjoyable, but that doesn't mean it's not hard. That doesn't mean it's not hard.
I saw something earlier this morning. I think it was from you. It was from you. You said, sometimes I don't have an aha moment. I have a oh damn.
Yes.
Okay, so explain that.
So most people have, oh, wow, I had an aha moment. I'm like, well, damn. That was most of my aha moments are those, girl, really? Mm-hmm. Please, right? It's like, you should have known that. You should have known that. Those are most of my moments. Every once in a while, I have a nice little clean aha, but that's not my normal. My normal is not that. My normal is, see, girl, I tried to tell you.
Yeah.
Right? Or like the old folks used to say, I done told you. That's usually mine.
Or when you said that, I thought about when we think he's going to get somebody else, he's really getting us.
Okay.
Like, it ain't about everybody else. It's about that head trash.
That head trash. Sometimes it's about you. Because that's what happened last week. I'm like, ooh. It's like, well, there you go. That was not my intention. That was my intention, but that was not the outcome I expected. I'm like, well, that I guess I need to regroup because the divine had other plans. As they say, man plans, God laughs.
That's funny. Tiffany Busby said, I needed to hear this. Thank you.
You're welcome, Tiffany.
Michelle Johnson says, thank you. Enjoy your retreat.
Thank you.
Dr. Cynthia said, wonderful program. Self-care is necessary.
Self-care is necessary. Thank you, ladies, for being there this morning. Thank you, everybody on KCOH. Thank you, everybody on my Facebook pages and my LinkedIn page. I appreciate you spending the time with me because I know you have a choice. I will catch you next week after my retreat. I'm going to come back rested and fired up. Get ready. Bye.